Were you employed by the provincial government or the federal government?
That's not quite the way to put it. I was in private practice, and I used to get commissions from the from the provincial government to do work, so that I was working sometimes for weeks doing those commissions which the provincial government had given me. Sometimes it'd be more, sometimes less, but I was not employed by them.
I see.
I was in private practice all the time.
Did you have an office in Nelson?
My office was in Kaslo.
In Kaslo.
Right.
When did you first come to the area?
1920. April 1920. Is that loud enough for the...
Yes, that's fine.
April 1920. And I left to Kaslo and moved my office to Nelson in 1931. And I kept the office open for 1939, when I had a heart breakdown. I could not do anything for a whole year. So when I recovered from my heart attack, I found I could not handle the land surveying work, climbing those hills and mountains. I couldn't do it. So I was trained as a civil engineer, and I got the job as a city of Nelson municipal, the city engineer for the city of Nelson. But I kept in touch with the Lardeau area. I was up and down there quite frequently in different ways.
What kind of surveying was it? Map making or right-of-ways, or?
Well, quite a varied. I was the only surveyor in the district, and so I got all kinds of different jobs. Sometimes I'd be asked to determine whether it was possible to build a reservoir up there 6,000 feet up. Another time it would be in connection with the waterworks, for new waterworks for Kaslo. And at other times it'd be mineral claims. A lot of my work was mineral claims. They were mostly way up high in the peaks. I do a very little work actually for the city of Kaslo, because it's a small area, small city, and wasn't much to do there. Mm-hmm. That was just my headquarters, where I and my family lived.
So you were up in the Lardeau country, up in around Argenta and...
Yeah, well, yes, right, all the way up the two valleys, pretty nearly to the headwaters of the Duncan branch, and right through the is it the Lardeau branch to Trout Lake, and then over to the Arrow Lakes and down the Arrow Lakes and up to, what's the name of the town at the headwaters, or Revelstoke, say Revelstoke, it's near enough, yeah. Mm-hmm. And I was doing that was when I was doing triangulation for the provincial government.
Could you explain that?
Eh?
Could you explain that work a little bit?
Well, the maps that the provincial government had been using constantly were maps which they had drawn by descriptions from different prospectors who would, for instance, they had a group of claims 6 miles up this creek, and it was on the left-hand side. And then to get to this creek, you'd have to go 4 miles or 6 miles up the main creek from the main valley. Well, then another prospector would come along and he'd say, well, he was over there and he found 6 or half a dozen good claims or 100 miles away. And with a description like that, well, this had been going on since 1890, and they gradually collected enough to make a semblance of maps. But as you can imagine, with very, very great many errors in them, because the prospectors wouldn't have much idea of giving good foundation. And so by the time that I moved in there, the provincial government were of the opinion that they needed new maps, properly drawn maps, starting with triangulation points. The idea of triangulation is that any time you have a known triangle with the known 3 angles and the 3 sides, that's it. You can't be squeezed. If you get a square, you can squeeze it over this way or that way, but a triangle you can't. You can't move that. That's it. So when you divide the whole country up into triangles, and you draw on the map, draw on the completed maps, it's a solid basis to go on. The maps that they're using now are the ones that I drew up by my triangulation 50 years ago.
Would the points that you used for triangulation be summits?
They were mostly summits. First of all, it would be necessary for me to very, very carefully chain a baseline with the chain, and what they call them, so that you knew how hard to pull on the chain. It was a different, and the chain would be correct to 100ths of an inch. It might be half a mile long, or perhaps not that much, perhaps only 3/8 of a mile. But I used to like to get them half a mile if possible. All right, then having got that baseline on the shores of the creek or shores of the lake, then you select a point up on that mountain this side and up on this side here. You clear it out and build a picket, what we call a picket. That's a piece of wood with a sharp point and flags on it, so you could pick it up. And then for each of these quarters, I would set up and turn the angles up to that point, and from that corner I'd turn the angles up to that point, and the same way up to this one. Well then, as I've already stated, the triangle is a perfect figure, and so that point doesn't change and this point doesn't change. But I could now figure the distance from this point to that point, which might be as much as, we'll say, 2 miles. Well, now I've got a 2 mile base, which is as accurate as this 3/8 of a mile base down the bottom. And so you repeat the same performance. You'd find a point up up there, another point up this side. And from each of these points you would turn the angles. So you might get a line then 4 or 5 miles in length. And by that time you can probably get a point up on the peak, and 2 peaks. And so now you've got a baseline which perhaps is 10 miles long. And with this you run up the valley. For instance, from Lardeau up to, what's the name of that little settlement just south end of the lake?
Gerard?
Gerard, that's right. A distance of 35 or 40 miles.
Hello.
Hello. This is my daughter, and that would be a distance of, I think it was about 35 miles. Well, then I'd have to shoot down to different points in the valleys, some of which I would have to build up myself, others would be the apex of a man's cabin, and different points, and then so that I can include the whole map of that particular portion from Lardeau to Gerard, which I would then send down to the government. That was my work for that year.
How long would it take you to complete the maps? Would it? Well,
just depends so very much on the nature of the topography and how rough it is and what the area is, so on. But by the longest time I was out for the government was 5 months, about 150 days. But the shortest time was probably only 5 or 6 weeks. It was very.
Why did you choose to come into that area?
Well, I just liked the mountains. When I first arrived in Vancouver in 1911, February 1911, I arrived in Vancouver, and that very first summer I went out as a rodman or chainman with the Surveyor up the valley from Vancouver, and I just liked it. But now you're asking for my experience between 1911 and 1920, I presume. Well, that included the war period. And I've been deaf all my life, so I never got into the front rank army. But for a while I was in the home services. For the best part of a year I was in the home services until I got a job with the Consolidated Mining and Smelting Company, in those days, Cominco nowadays, in the East Kootenay. And during my weekends I would travel around up to different mountains and look around the country. And from there I got a job in the Britannia mines back on the coast, where I was the underground engineer. And I got along very, very well there, but it was a horribly wet mine. We were wet through every day. Even with the feet, they didn't have rubbers any good in those days. You had to have ordinary shoes, and of course you'd get wet through your feet, and I'd be wet through all through the body. And my daughter, who was born there, she caught
double pneumonia.
So her mother had to take her down to Vancouver. This was after we'd been there for a couple of years. So by the time she finally got better and her mother brought her back to Britannia, I also had spells of similar troubles. I'd be in bed for a day or two pretty near every month in the winter. I decided that no. I had told the fellows around the office and around the engineers there that what I was planning to do. I'd look for a place where perhaps a surveyor, land surveyor, was selling out. And finally I got to know of this land surveying business at Kaslo, where the chap had died, and his equipment was up for sale for a total cost of only $500.
Who was that?
Hayland, A.R. Hayland. So I went up there, looked it over, and had a talk with a lot of the prospectors in Ainsworth and Kaslo and different places. And it seemed like a pretty fair job, so I decided I would buy it. And I went back to the Britannia and gave in my resignation. In due course, we moved up to Kaslo sometime in April 1920.
What was Kaslo like in those days?
Well, it was a little busier than it is now, because there were so many miners around. And many of them were making good money, and along with those who were making good money, there were a lot who hard ups all the time. Well, it was quite a bit busier than it is now. Nowadays it's just full of, well, they're just living there, aren't they? So retired people and so on.
Tourism.
Tourists? Oh, that's so. Yeah, well, it was different in those days. The mines were all going well, going good. They were making good money. There was one man whose family I got to know, and in one short spell of, I don't just know how long, we'll say perhaps 6 months, he cleaned up $18,000. Which in those days was big money.
Was he from Kaslo or?
Yeah, he was a Kaslo man. His wife and family lived in Kaslo. He was up in his mine. See, what was the name of it? Oh, I forget. I've been up there too, but the name would come back to me in time, but I've forgotten it.
Kaslo Creek. Yeah.
Well, you went up Kaslo Creek for about 10 miles, and then you branched off and went up to the left. And it was fairly high, about 7,000 feet. Pretty well that timberline.
Had you been into some of the mines like the Bannockburn and the Argenta Hamel Silver Mine? Any of those?
I've done work in probably 50 of those mines up in the country altogether, so making short surveys. The surveys are perhaps only 2 or 3 days, others would take three weeks. But for most of them I have done a lot of work.
Would these be title surveys?
Pardon?
Legal surveys for title?
Oh, now you're talking about something different. What I've just been mentioning is underground surveys, surveying the tunnels and the stopes, measuring the underground work. Now, for getting titles, it's what we call mineral claims. Yes, I'd be given jobs by different chaps to survey his group of 2 or 3 claims, or half a dozen, or 10 claims, with the intention of getting the rights. See, what did they used to call it? Oh, I forget. But getting the grounds for each mineral claim.
Why? That's the reason that you would survey underground as well?
Theoretically, before you could get a mineral claim properly in your name, you had to do $100 worth of work every year for as long as you had the claim. And during that time, you managed to do some underground, most of the underground work. Well, that would be the underground work which I would survey, which had to be done before the owner of the claims could legally get proper rights to his mineral claims. The mineral claim was always a separate job from the underground work.
Do you recall any specific mines in particular, or miners?
Oh, well, the Silversmith at Sandon, and
Lucky Jim,
and the what was the one at Whitewater, and the names are gone. It's I can't remember them.
Were you up to the Silver Cup and the Nettie L?
Yes, both those. Yes.
Were those fairly large operations?
Yes, in those days, not now in the days of the low-grade mines. These were all high-grade mines, up near the surface, up near the surfaces. So, see, what's the old chap's name that I used to do? At Three Forks. What was his name? He was a millionaire. Oh, he was a well-known chap. He had his finger in half a dozen mines, and some of them he made a lot of money, and he immediately go and lose it in some mines that were no good at all.
Was it Sandy, somebody?
Well, he lived at Three Forks. And I worked as his mine engineer for 6 or 8 years until he died. And when he died, that finished that. He'd give me a ring when he thought it was necessary for him to have some extended surveys. And in due course, I'd go up and do it, stay at his house with him. What's his name? As soon as you've gone, I'll remember it.
Are you any relation to George Dawson, the surveyor?
No. I came out from England in 1911. I was 24 then. And so I came out here as a complete stranger. Didn't know anybody. Didn't know a soul in the West. I had cousins in Montreal. And an uncle in Montreal, an uncle and cousins in Montreal, with whom I stayed on the way out. How many years ago is that? 11 from 80 is 69 years ago.
Could you tell me a little bit about Tommy Coleman? You remember of him?
Tom Coleman. He was a typical Cockney, born in London, England, and very, very good fellow around the camp. But I've heard on the side that he wasn't such a heck of a good chap in his home, but that's something I don't really know anything about. It's just my hearsay. But his wife did used to tell me that the money he got home after he'd been out with Dawson was the only money of any size that she ever saw. So she was always very pleased when word came that Dawson wanted him to go out as his cook again. So he was my cook for about 10 years. I don't know anything about his home life. I got to know the three girls. Two of them stayed at our house in Kaslo to take their exams at the high school. They couldn't take the exams around Argenta. They had to come down to Kaslo for that. So they used to come down, I think, just one occasion or two occasions.
I'm not sure.
Uh,
And of course, Winnie still lives in Nelson.
Huh?
Winnie lives in Nelson
Nora.
now.
Nora does.
Oh, Nora.
Right.
I'm sorry. Nora, yes.
Winnie's up here in Souk.
Oh, is she? Yes. Wrong way around. Oh. Nora did work for the Sterling Furniture
That's right.
for years, but she lives there still, yes. Oh, Winnie lives at Souk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, mhm.
And I don't know where the other sister lives.
I see. Have you seen?
Hampson, I think. her
And
name.
have you seen Winnie?
Yeah, she's the one who sent me here.
Oh, she is the one. Oh. It was Winnie Coleman who sent Peter here.
Oh, Winnie Coleman? Oh, where is she living?
Souk.
Huh?
Souk. Out
Souk?
here.
Out here down, how is that so? Oh, yeah.
What is
Well.
her married name?
Carson.
Oh.
Carson.
Carson, yes.
Oh, there used to be Carsons up there, a family of Carsons up there. I suppose they knew each other as quite young, perhaps. I remember there was a Carson and a family up there at Argenta before I left.
There's also a Carton as well, early settlers.
Carton?
Yeah, do you...
I don't remember them.
Could you offer a general description of the Lardeau as you remember it?
Topographical or just people?
Both.
Well, the main Lardeau River commences in the mountains north of Trout Lake, and the main stream entered the northwest end of Trout Lake. So and then there were other streams coming in all the way. By the time that the lake was the outlet of the lake, it was quite a river, the Lardeau River. Only occasionally could we find places where we could wade it. We did occasionally, but it was a little awkward. Sometimes we'd be in water up to our waist, and in the swift flowing current you might not be able to keep your feet. So if we were further down, nearer the Kootenay Lake, it was impossible to wade it. You'd have to go across the bridges, one or other of the bridges, or use the boat. I had my boats up there. I used to be able to take them up the rivers so far.
What are these bateaus? Bateaus or?
No, rowboats with outboard motors. Then at a few miles before the Lardeau River entered Kootenay Lake, it was joined by the old Duncan River, which came down from a more easterly direction. its source was the glaciers, 30 or 40, 50 miles further up. And it was a river that by the time it got to its junction with the Lardeau River, you could not wade it. You'd have to go across by boats, so on. And I used to go up both the rivers to do claims for different men. In the Lardeau River, there used to be I forget his name, and his daughter, or niece was it, who ran a camp about 25 miles up the river, where we surveyors, where I with my gang would stay overnight, because that was far enough to go in one day, and most of our claims were way up in the mountains beyond there. We'd have to walk from there on, perhaps 20 miles.
Mm-hmm.
And I surveyed a number of claims up that branch of the river. Both rivers are pretty much the same, heavily timbered. And of course, nowadays, I suppose a good deal of it has been logged off,
Mm-hmm.
and the second growth is coming up. But in my day, it was all new timber, not new timber, the old forests still in my day.
Mm-hmm.
You should tell them about your campfire experience along that river.
About the what?
The campfire experience.
Oh yes,
Which
that's
river?
right, yeah.
Which river
Yeah.
was that?
On the Duncan River.
Duncan.
I had sent my gang up a day or two before, because from Kaslo, for instance, it took you a whole day to get up to where this old chap lived. And then from there it was a full day's work to climb up to the camp. And especially if you had the horses, and don't think I had horses up there. Oh, I probably did, yes. I think the old chap had a few pack horses, yeah. And then I followed 1 or 2 days afterwards in my boat, speedboat, and I was hoping to get clear up to the site of the mineral claims right up in the peaks. But when I got to the the Hauser Lake, but I did have enough sense to leap out onto this snag and hold on to a big branch that stood up and hold the boat, keep it from floating away down the river. So all the rain was coming down, I was wet through. Now it got dark. I think before it got dark I had managed to get the boat somewhat up on the safe side of the sweeper, so that it couldn't, and tied up so that it couldn't be washed away. But I managed to get my instruments out, most of them, some of them were lost. And so did everything that I thought was possible, and then I lit a fire, and of course I always had a small axe with me. I was able to chop enough cedar wood, and soon had a great big roaring blaze going, and I was beginning to dry out a bit. And then I got sleepy, and I laid down. Yeah, my blankets had gone up with the previous, with the gang. They had my blankets. So I had to lay down and make myself as comfortable as possible. And I went fast asleep. And I was wondering about how I was going to, what I would do to float back down the river, because the engine would be no good. It would be drowned out. So I went to sleep. Presently I awakened and heard another boat coming, zooming up the river. Gosh, I said, that's just what I'm looking for. I jumped up and dashed right across and ran right through the middle of this hot fire with my bare feet. And there wasn't any boat at all. It was only in my dream anyway.
Oh.
So then I had a bad time. I danced around. Both my feet were burnt pretty. The skin was burnt. Of course, I was only in the middle of these hot ashes for a second because I was awake by then. Well, when the day broke, I think I'd lost both the oars. So I scrounged around until I found something that looked something like an oar. And finally, make a long story short, I got the boat floated and ladled out all the water that I could, and then I carefully launched her out into the stream again and was rapidly taken downstream. And in about 3 miles I found the opening into the Haley's cabin, which I pulled into. No, that's not right. There were 2 or 3 men doing some logging just before getting to Haley's. And I pulled into their place. I didn't go right down to Haley's. Not then. I did later on, but not then. And I think they came, one of them came with me as far as Haley's. It wasn't very far, half a mile or so. But for the rest of that trip, I had a pretty bad time with my feet. But when I did finally get back to Kaslo and I went to see the doctor, he said, well, that's the best thing that you happened, that you had to do work and keep your circulation going. It was a good thing. So he couldn't do very much. He just bounded up afresh, that's all. I was about 10 days gone in that trip, I guess. So I had a lot of climbing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it was whilst we were up there that we had to get out of the way of a rock slide. We heard it coming, and of course we kept a watch. That comes natural to you when you're up in the mountain. You have to run the line right across anywhere. You're always watching to see what's coming down.
Mm-hmm. So
they shouted out to me, here's a rock slide coming, or come back up here onto the ridge where I was with my instrument. But I had to go from ridge to ridge with the instruments. So we all got clear of that rock slide and we saw it come roaring past us, and no one was hit or hurt. It's one of the hazards that you're liable to when you're surveying mineral claims that high. In those days, which we used to have to do with I always had a 300-foot chain. You know what the chains are? Tapes, steel tapes.
Yes.
Yeah. Nowadays they can do a lot of it with different expensive instruments, which they didn't have in my day. They hadn't been invented. But I understand now you don't have to chain from peak to peak anymore. Have you ever been out with a surveyor?
No.
No.
It wasn't unusual for mines in the Lardeau to be way up in the Alpine, was it?
Generally, that's the only time that's the only place where a man could determine where there was any likelihood of mineral. Down in the forest, there was too much forest growth. True, you'd walk up the riverbeds, and you might find some traces, or you might find some pieces of ore being washed down the riverbed, and so that would tease you to go on up to where the main body was. And that main body was practically always above timberline. So practically all these caves were way above timberline.
Mm.
It's only in the modern time when they have these huge low-grade mines without much ore in them, but if you work them in sufficient magnitude, you can make them pay. But you have hundreds of claims. You didn't do that in my day. You only had a string of 6 or 8 or 10 claims. That would be about all.
Mm-hmm.
And they were always up above timberline.
How large a crew was working up near Ferguson in those days?
Yeah, Ferguson, that's a town at the head of the Hauser Lake. No, not Hauser Lake. Head of the Trout Lake, and then about 4 miles to the north. Oh, I think there were only about 2 men, 2 families. It is already played out. Mm-hmm. There were good showings up those headwaters, but I think they had been worked out very close to the surface, and they had been worked out. Mm-hmm. There was hardly anyone left up there. To get to the peaks on the main Lardeau and the Duncan River wasn't too difficult, but to get to the peaks by the side of the you just given me the name of the lake?
Trout Lake.
Trout Lake. One of them couldn't go straight up, but we had to go round to the south of it, a long trip round to the south, and come up on the south slope, which was a good slope. No trouble at all until you finally got to the peak. But you didn't dare come up straight from the lake because it was too steep and dangerous. And you had to cross a glacier anyway. Well, we always tried to avoid crossing glaciers because they were dangerous. You might slip and break a leg or something. Mm-hmm. So we stayed off the ice as much as possible, and just occasionally we more or less had to carefully cross the ice, cut our steps, not too often. Mm-hmm. That's something that I stayed away from if possible. I wasn't there for pleasure, I was there for business. There was a peak at the upper end of, I forgot the name of the lake now.
Trout Lake.
Trout Lake, the upper end of Trout Lake at the south side. Alice Peak it was called. And it was very nicely placed for triangulation purposes. There was a trail for quite a way until we got beyond the trail end, then we had to climb. And when we got to a certain place, gosh, it was pretty steep, and we looked at it and tried round first this side and then the other, and we lost so much time. And the afternoon was really drawing on, and it was quite impossible for us to get up there and do the work and get back again. So I had to call it off and make our way back to camp, which was several miles up. Well, we didn't go very far before I sat down, and the others, gangs, of course, they sat down too. Any time I sat down, they always were willing to find a place to sit down. And I was sitting there thinking, wondering, well, if I came up again tomorrow, would we still be able to do it, climb it? Well, overnight, I got them to collect what fairly strong ropes there were, and we took ropes with us. And the ropes were for the purpose of hauling the instrument, which was quite a heavy instrument, weighed about 25 pounds. And that on your back, having to climb this steep pinnacle, wasn't any too encouraging. So probably I was the one who, I don't just remember who was the one who made the first climb, and they made it. We'd all of us got a little bit more confidence, and he made it, and then he lowered the rope and we hauled the instrument up, so that way we all got over that. And we got up to the top there and made a triangulation figures. And then back again, we adopted the same system. We lowered the instrument by itself.
Was that the transit? The transit that you were lowering?
Yeah, the transit, yeah. Mm-hmm. It was not one of my light aluminum instruments. It was one that had been loaned to me by the provincial surveys department. They loaned it for me for the whole 12 years that I was doing that work.
Why did you have that specific one?
Well, it was a bigger one and in better condition. The small light aluminum instruments that I had were very liable to get out of
alignment.
Out of alignment. But this one was in good condition, but it was heavy.
Brass and.
Oh yeah. It was a buff and buff, what we call a buff and buff instrument. General makers of survey instruments.
Did you ever hike over from the Upper Duncan down to Ferguson, Marsh Adams Creek, up that way?
Yes, I did, but the other way. Not that way. We started from the Ferguson way and went over toward the Duncan. It wasn't too difficult. You see, once you're used to traveling in the high peaks, the muscles of your legs build up and you can get along fair speed. In fact, you probably do it quicker that way than you would through the forest down lower. You know where you wanted to go.
Was there ever any evidence in older maps and surveys that you'd seen of a railway to be built along that route?
Yes, there was, yeah. They had a railway going up the west side of Kootenay Lake. And several miles up the Duncan River, but it was graded. But now, were there any rails laid down? I don't just remember. It wasn't in working order in my time anyway. But the rail on the Lardeau River was, train used to go up once a week. Oh, and Tuesday nights. Yeah.
Dad, didn't the railway start at Lardeau?
Yeah.
It started at Lardeau. It didn't go up from Kaslo to Lardeau. The people would take the sternwheeler
Oh, that's right.
to
yeah.
Lardeau.
The boats. The boat, that's right.
And then get on the train.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
remember, you took me on the speeder going from the Lardeau up to Trout Lake,
Oh, yeah.
one of those places up there. That was one way you would take me up sometimes in
Yeah,
the
that's
boat
right.
or else on the speeder
Yeah,
to get where you wanted to go.
yeah. Well, it had been graded on the up toward the Duncan from Lardeau.
Mm-hmm.
It had been graded, but I don't believe.
On the Argenta side,
Yeah, on the
Great
Argenta
Northern,
side. I
yeah.
don't remember. I don't think there were any rails actually laid.
did you ever see old maps or surveys of right-of-ways for the Kaslo and Lardeau-Duncan Railway that went all the way up the Duncan, up the West Fall, or the West Fork of the Duncan?
Oh yeah.
Did you ever come
Yeah, I
across
think
that?
probably I saw it, although I don't have any very clear recollection. I think probably I have seen. Where would I? I'm not just sure about that. Better than not say anything. There used to be an old parson at Kaslo, Reverend somebody, who was very fond of hunting. And,
Hughes? Reverend Hughes?
No, the Anglican man. And one time when I was traveling up by myself, up to where my gang were, we walked along this grade that I've spoken of, and he had his shotgun or rifle shotgun with him. And when he says, I know it's Sunday afternoon, but those they'd be ducks, I suppose. Ducks I'd hit. I can't miss them. So he took 2 shots and got 2 birds. He had to excuse himself, saying, I know it's Sunday, but yeah.
Do you remember Andy Daney,
Daney.
packer?
Yes, I remember the name comes back to me. Daney. Now he was wasn't he in that town on the Spokane Lake?
He was at Ferguson.
Oh, he was a Ferguson. He wasn't at Ferguson when I met him.
Mm.
He had moved out from Ferguson. Maybe he was staying more or less in the hotel at Trout Lake.
Mm-hmm.
I remember him, not too clearly. See, the packing business was pretty well, those mines were pretty well being worked out during the years that I was there.
Mm-hmm.
I was just trying to think of the name of the chap who in my day did most of the packing business. And his son is still working in Nelson. Works for me actually in my block in Nelson. This fellow had did all the packing business around Sandon, and he also ran the coal business, and he owned the electric light plant and the water plant. No, that's not right. I'm mixing him up with the. No, he operated the coal and the pack horses. And he had 100 pack horses. So I used to, if I didn't have my own horses, I'd go up there and hire 2 or 3 of his horses. Standard rate was $2 a day if you fed them and $3 a day if he had to feed them. Mm-hmm. And when you got up there and unloaded your packs, you'd re-saddle the horses and take proper care that the ropes wouldn't get tangled up, and then face them down the road and give their rear ends a good slap and start them off, and they'd find their own way home. That was the custom. They always arrived home. They might take an hour or 2 or 3 hours eating them, so they knew this was a regular custom in those days. Mm. The trouble with this old chap was he was always drunk. Oh, the amount of money he drank was terrific. But his son in Nelson he's okay. And I think I've met the old chap's wife in Nelson too. Oh, what the world was his name?
Choquette?
Huh?
Choquette?
No, not Choquette, no. He was an Englishman.
And he works for you in the block, did you say?
No, he owned the barns and the horses and the coal business, and he'd have 1 or 2 wagons, perhaps 2-horse or 4-horse wagons, which he had to have to haul the coal up the hills. So he had his own business, and a thriving business too. That's how he was. He had so much money to drink. He was a well-educated chap. I think they used to tell me he was either an Oxford or a Cambridge chap. Mm. There came a time after I had left Kaslo I think it was after I'd had my heart attack. But have you been to Sandon? Mm-hmm. Well, you know where the river used to run down the main street through a flume. Well, there came a time when there was no one up there to clear the flume at the start. And so this huge rainstorm, and some of the big rocks got in there and dammed up this flume, and so the water had nowhere else to go but on the surface, and that's how come it's all washed out. But most of the mining was through by that time. One time when I was up there, what's the name of the town at the north end of the Arrow Lake?
Kamaplex?
Huh?
Beaton?
Beaton. So I got off the ship with my gang and our packs, and there's some old chap there who had a bee in his bonnet. He came up to me very quietly. He says, "Where's that black woman you got for cook?" "I don't see the black woman." So he wanted to find, and this was in his mind all the time. He went to each of the boys and says, "Where's your black woman cook?" He never got a black woman. Not from us anyway. Yes, and there was another case. The chap who ran the store up there, I've forgotten his name, but he was another drinker.
At Beaton?
Eh?
Where
at Beaton. He ran the grocery store, which I used to have to get my groceries for my camps. And he was a heavy drinker. So there was no money any time. He'd always gone and spent it for drink. And his wife had to go out working. And she was a school teacher, whom I had not met for quite a few years. But one time when I was on the Kootenay Lake, down at that settlement on the east side, somewhat opposite the West Arm.
Pilot Bay, Crawford Bay?
Crawford Bay, yeah, Crawford Bay. There was a hotel there. And so I had pulled in there with my gang, and we were having supper, and a prim little person was eating over there, and personally she finished and she got up and walked out. And some little time later, when perhaps most of my gang had gone, the lady who ran the hotel came up to me. She says, "Did you see that little lady? Well, she's the new school teacher. Gosh, I'm sorry for her. That school is nothing but the big hulks of girls and great hulking boys out in the world. She's going to get on with all that crowd. I don't know. I guess she only stay a day or two." Because that'd been the story. The teachers came in and they left in 2 weeks, or at the most 1 month. So I said, well, maybe she might do a little better, being elder and more experienced. Well, anyway, that same fall, perhaps 6 weeks later, I had to go over again on other work, and I stayed at the same hotel. And the lady came to me, the lady of the house came to me, says, "You remember that school teacher?" Yes, I said, "Well," she said, "you never laughed so much in all your life. She's got all those great big hulking boys and girls, just buffalo. They don't dare a thing without they have her permission. And she's got perfect order. She's got them all." So that she stayed there for several years. Yeah, she had. For one thing, that she wore very, very long skirts. They were training the dust all out, and by that time the girls had already shortened their skirts quite a bit. Yeah.
Were you involved in any surveys for large projects in the Lardeau of any kind?
Well, not in the way perhaps that you're thinking, not for huge dams and so on, no. But perhaps the longest job that I did have was for a group of mineral claims. A person had bought or obtained the rights to all the mineral claims on the Payne Mountain. Do you know the Payne Mountain?
It's near Cody in San.
Yeah. It's on the left-hand side of that creek as you go up. Mm-hmm. And there were scores of claims there, and he had bought the whole thing, and he thought he would be able to handle a large, low-grade property. But the first thing he wanted to do was to have a complete map of draw true to scale and so on. So I was up there, I suppose, for about 3 weeks with my gang. Mm. But nothing ever came of it. He got my maps and paid me all right, but I guess he by that time found out that there wasn't any low-grade stuff. Not worthwhile anyway. Mm. Then the Silversmith, I used to go up there on a regular basis. I was up there several times. I think the first time I went up there I had about 2 weeks' work. And one time I announced to the manager, I forget his name, well, I guess I've finished and I'll be leaving on the train in the morning. Leaving? Why? He says, I thought you were going to finish the job. Well, I said, I have finished it. He told me, say, you got all that surveyed, do you? Well, yeah, everything, any foreman has shown me I've got it all surveyed. Oh, gosh, I didn't think you were going to do it that quick. His son had been doing the surveys, and his son wanted to move away and find other places to work at.
Did forest fires hinder your work in the summertime?
I guess I was probably lucky. I don't think they did to any extent, except once I was on the mountains just slightly west of the Whitewater, or a couple of miles west, and then over the Whitewater forest fires were burning, but they did not spread as far as the ridge on which we were living, so we just had the view. And another occasion was I forget now what I was going to refer to. One other time we had some, I know. During the long hot summers there would be frequent electric storms in the peaks. And some of these would come along in the afternoons, not often in the mornings, but in the afternoons you would see the flashes and they'd strike down at different places. They'd find their strike someplace. I had been doing the work of triangulation on the Arrow Lakes, and at one particular place we had built for a point of work to, we used to build a cairn of rocks, say 6 feet high or even more sometimes, and in the middle would be a straight piece of sapling that we'd gotten trimmed and stood right over the brass tack, and on this would be tacked a white flag and a red flag, so that it would be visible 10 miles away through my instrument. So in due course I had now got to the other side of the lake. Most of these mountains had to be climbed twice, and I had climbed the peak right behind the glacier, which is seen on the Arrow Lakes opposite, on the west side, not too far south of Beaton. And the stiff climb was a long way round. So and it was a strong point, in other words, I could see several other stations from it. But when I looked back to this first station that I spoke of, it was nowhere to be seen. I could not detect it at all. The rocks wouldn't show up at that distance. I couldn't distinguish the rocks from the ordinary higher mountains at the back. So I looked and looked, spent hours there. I still couldn't find it. So I sent one of my men back with the sole purpose of retracing all of my steps all around and getting the ferry and climbing up and put that
to see what was wrong, to be erected. And it took him, he left one morning, and it took him 36 hours to get back there. Well, he got back there about the early afternoon of the second day, and I was constantly watching. I saw when he was now there, and I think he said that he thought it was probably goats had seen this and the flags and that, and they were interested and they had torn it down. I think he blamed it on goats. Anyway, so as soon as that was done, I think I had finished. That was my last job. I told him to go down to Nakas, where his home was, and stay there until I came. He still get his pay. I used to pay him $85 a month, but the rest of the gang $75 a month and board. So he stayed there for 2 or 3 days until I showed up. Well, I think that was the only misfire that I had. Of all those scores, hundreds of cairns that I put up, that was the only one that we failed to pick up. Of course, it was too difficult, too much hard work, too much climbing, too arduous. The work was too arduous to put up anything that you felt sure wasn't going to stay there. So we built a pretty good cairn.
How did you come to know Billy Clark?
Billy Clark had a cabin at the south end of Hauser Lake. And in one of my earliest trips up there, I engaged him as my cook. Not only did he, and so this year after year, he often came out with me for, sometimes just for 3 or 4 days, sometimes for a couple of weeks. And he was so active and so full of energy. Did you ever know him?
No.
He was so full of energy and so active that he doesn't mean that the cook didn't suit him. He wanted to be the axeman as well. So he came out with me online, and he could cut as many trees himself as the other 2 or 3 together. So that's the way I got to know him. He's a very good chap, very good on the line. Very coarse language, which he never failed to use. Typical. Everybody liked him. I was, in fact, this this Billy Clark that delayed me on my trip I told you about previously. And that was one of the last times that I saw him up there. He was beginning to get sick of something or other. He came down and got a place near Nelson, where he died eventually, after a couple of years or so. He came out from England as a Batman with a major somebody or another who continued to live up around there. This major married the daughter of a school teacher and was around, lived in Nelson for a while, was around for several years until he died.
Is that one of the Hinks?
Hinks?
Was the major's name Hinks?
Hinks, that's right. That's right. There were 2 or 3 of them. One of them was a Navy man, the other was an Army man, and I think there was another man, but he wasn't so prominent. I don't think he lived up there. He lived somewhere else. And I never knew him. I just knew these 2. And the Navy captain didn't stay so long. I don't know what happened to him, whether he went back to England or what.
Mm.
But it was the army major that liked it.
And had brought Billy Clark out with him.
Yeah, right.
Huh.
Right.
Do you know others in Hauser? Slim Hatfield and
Hatfield.
Joe Gallo.
Joe Gallo, yeah, I knew him. Oh, yes. Later on, I used to do work for Joe Gallo. He moved around prospecting, and he always called on me to run a road grade up there, or survey the mineral, or survey the mineral claim.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I knew Joe Gallo quite a bit. He was always very good. He never failed to pay. As soon as I sent the bill in, a check would be back in a day or two.
Was that unusual?
Yeah, sure it was.
Mm.
Usually you had to wait until the fellow made a deal with his selling his claim or something.
Mm.
But actually, I think I only lost, entirely lost twice. Twice I entirely lost my fees. So I was pretty lucky, I guess. Of course, I used to send my bill in right away. I didn't wait for 2 or 3 months before sending a bill. Bill to get it right away, and I usually got the money. The pickings weren't very good. The winters were too long. Nothing like the surveyors down here. They could work 12 months a year.
Mm-hmm. How long did you work for the city of Nelson?
Was it 8 years? I think it was 8 years. 1939 to 1947. Yeah, 8 years. Then I got a job as city engineer for Saanich, and I was there for 10 years. Oh, I liked those jobs, and there was something new then, the regular monthly pay. Down here, especially at Saanich, it was the best job I had all my life, I guess. You're not interested in any of my remembrances around here. All you want to do is
The Lardeau mostly, yeah.
Lardeau. So long ago that my memory not very accurate.
Mm.
See, there was one time when I went up to the hotel at Lardeau, and I ate something that didn't agree with me, and I was in bed for a couple of days with my gang hanging around. I soon got over it.
Is that Ulvin's Hotel? Or McQuiston, or?
The name of the owner? Say them again, those names?
Ulvin?
No, that doesn't sound it.
Or McQuiston?
If it's a lady.
I don't...
And it'd be around 1926 or 28. 1928 perhaps. Well, yeah, I used to go down to Ainsworth, and I stayed in the hotel there, and I had a fair number of jobs out from Ainsworth.
Were you the only surveyor in Kaslo?
Yeah.
And
But there was surveyors from Nelson used to come up and get jobs up different places. I occasionally run into them. See, what was his name? The chief surveyor, or the leading surveyor, was a chap named, I forget. It'll come to me. And he had a man who did most of his work. The man was a fully qualified British Columbia land surveyor, but he did most of the old chap's work. A hotel in Ainsworth. She had 2 daughters with her, and for a while these girls did the hotel work. But this particular lady, she was one who always used extremely strong language. And she'd bawled them out. All the men were scared of her. I don't know what happened to her. But she knew the hotel business, and she made the men who stayed there, and she made them obey her commands. If they didn't, they had to get out. Usually the hotel keepers were pretty good people.
Jack Haley was certainly in an out-of-the-way place at Haley's Landing to run a business way up there on the Duncan.
He was, wasn't he? Of course, he used to do trapping. And in his earlier days, I guess he did pretty well trapping, and there would be other groups going up there, men looking for mines, and perhaps induced some chap with money to come up and see his particular claim, and they'd be passing up and down every week. I wasn't the only one. And I suppose he grew his own vegetables, and he'd do his own hunting. Sometimes he'd shoot a caribou which was out of, they were protected, you weren't supposed to. But he'd get away with it. Claimed it was half dark and he couldn't see that it was a caribou or something like that. Have you ever seen caribou in the woods?
No.
Well, they're great big spreading horns, and it's difficult to, you'd think it's difficult to mistake anything that moved in those woods. Anything looked like a caribou, well, it would be a caribou, nothing else. And every once in a while I'd be fed on bear meat. If the bear that was shot was quite a cub, the meat wasn't too bad, but if it was an older bear, I never cared for it. The boys would eat them all right, but it didn't go down my stomach very good. But we were fed bear meat quite often. Tom Coleman, so we were sitting around the campfire, and he says, you know, my great-grandfather was the Governor General of India, and my grandfather was something high up in the Indian Army. My father was a lieutenant in the Army, but he was killed. And then I was nothing but a bloody private. What the hell my 2 boys are going to be, I don't know. But I've heard since that they both have made a lot of money. That is so, eh?
Who was this?
Coleman.
He had two.
No, he didn't have any boys. Well, I've got the something tangled anyway. That's the story. Maybe. No, how would he come to know? Oh, I don't know. Don't know. I guess I got it mixed up. Anyway, that was roughly the story.
Well, you said Coleman was a blacksmith?
He could do the blacksmithing. With as far as my horse's shoeing could do. Yes, he could do that. He was a handy man, almost anything. He was very handy. Didn't matter what repair work or anything I wanted done around, he could always do it. He's one of those ready with his hands to do anything. And at camp he was always cheerful.
How far afield would you go with him, or would you have local cooks and crews in different areas, or would you?
Oh, once I had him, he came with me all the time.
So he would go as far as the Arrow Lakes and
right.
Sandon and up that way?
Oh, yeah. I rather suspect he was one of the crew that went with me to that place where I said we had to wait for a couple of days. Yeah. We'd had a long trip. We'd landed at the west side of the lower Arrow Lake and had to go about 20 miles up before we found a road which led up to a certain tourist hotel. And when we got there, we had to use a dugout boat to row us up the lake about 5 miles to the bottom of the other end of the lake, and then we climbed up to this peak. So it was a long trip. Yeah, I rather suspect he was with me.
You would also hire Billy Clark on your crew?
No, Billy never wanted to come out with me on those long trips. He wouldn't have minded. He didn't mind if it was upwards of 10 days, or at the most 2 weeks, perhaps. 10 days is probably about as much as he wanted. If it was going to be more than 10 days, he wouldn't come. He always found lots of work. He was one of these men that was willing to do anything too, and he could do anything. And he was certainly a good axeman.
Very strong man?
Strong, yeah, hefty. Yeah.
Do you remember any of the miners at the small mines up the Silver Cup or the Bannockburn or Black Prince or any of those mines?
There were a group of 5 miners in 2 different groups working at the Whitewater not long after I went to Kaslo. 2 of them were 2 brothers, and did they come from across the line? I'm not sure where they came from. And the other 3 was a father and 2 boys. And the father was a Kaslo man, fairly well known. The name is gone. But these 2 were operating in separate portions of the Whitewater, leasing. But they both used the same sleigh for taking their ore bags down to the railroad. And as you know, there's a lot of snow up there, and one time the sleigh got hidden under the snow. And when these 2 brothers wanted to use the sleigh to take their ore down to the siding, they couldn't find the sleigh. But one of the brothers, somewhere or another, was pretty sure that one of the sons knew where it was by his actions. They were pretty sure that. And so they started digging around, and the man with his 2 boys, they got quarreling and personally fighting, and they really had almost a fight to the death. That was really really going at it, hammer and tongs. None of them did die, but they were in the hospital for several weeks. Yeah.
Rough country?
Rough country, yeah. Yeah, that didn't seem to happen too often. I suppose these 2 groups had been up there probably several years, perhaps, and they'd got along fairly well, but once in a while they'd start arguing about something. There would be bad blood of some kind of